Hello, I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. One of my favorite authors is Stephen King. From The Shining, to Pet Sematary, to even Under the Dome, adaptations of King's work have been entertaining us for decades. Today I am discussing a remake of one of the very first, and thus most iconic, Stephen King movies, Carrie. Chloe Grace Moretz stars as the title character, a young girl who is constantly bullied by her schoolmates, all the while being abused by her deeply religious mother, Margaret, played by Julianne Moore. Everything changes when Carrie discovers she possesses telekinetic powers, and the results soon prove disastrous for everyone involved. Before I go any further, I will say that there are spoilers ahead for both this film and the original, for the sake of comparison. The original Carrie is a great, if flawed, horror film, and yeah, the same pretty much applies to this film as well, but for different reasons. In the original, hands down, the best element was Sissy Spacek as Carrie, while the rest of the film, notably the cinematography, was a bit lacking. In the remake, Chloe Grace Moretz is probably the only major weak link in an otherwise well-made film. What I mean by that is I just think Moretz is miscast in the role. Carrie is supposed to be this traumatized, emotionally stunted girl who finally gets revenge on the people who harmed her. Moretz just seems a little too strong in the role and plays it more like a typical wide-eyed innocent, and she does that well, don't get me wrong, it's just not what Carrie is supposed to be. The actor who really steals the show is Julianne Moore as Carrie's mother, played in the original by Piper Laurie. Moore manages to create a performance that differs from Laurie's but is still consistent with the character. Moore comes off as a soft-spoken manipulator who controls Carrie psychologically rather than physically. Laurie's performance, while it was great, don't get me wrong, was more along the lines of this.
I told you, no wire hangers ever!
The cinematography is also refreshingly modern in this version, while the original definitely has some hilariously outdated scenes. Don't get me wrong, the scenes that are well shot in the original are great, it's just that a few of them are rather silly looking and outdated. Director Kimberly Peirce does a good job of capturing the intensity of a situation, as one would expect from the director of Boys Don't Cry. Also, this version follows the book more closely, at least for the most part. The side characters are given more development here, especially the villain Chris. In the original, it's merely implied that she's just a spoiled little princess. Here, that's shown more to us outright, showing us that she was a child who was allowed to do whatever she pleased, which serves as a contrast to Carrie, who is obviously the exact opposite. This makes her actions in the film seem a touch more believable. Overall, Carrie doesn't manage to overshadow its predecessor by any stretch of the imagination, but I still enjoyed it enough to give it a low big screen rating. I'm the Universal Critic. I talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. Goodbye.